Hey, what's up guys? Blue Devil with Overclock.net. Today I have the Ryzen 5 lineup right here. Two boxes are only here, but I have the Ryzen 5 1400, 1500X, 1600, 1600X, and I threw in the Ryzen 7 1700 as well, just to kind of show the difference between a 4, 6, and 8 core in the graphs to follow. AMD really has shaken up the marketplace in terms of adding extra benefit to buck. It really came to a point where Intel was dominating everything and AMD was always left with that value-oriented CPU or product. So now that they've finally caught up to the 7700K mainstream-like, they can start concentrating on things like Threadripper, where it's going to actually go head-to-head against the i7s, the Extreme Editions, or the new i9s on the X299 platform. Their platform is going to be called the X399, oddly enough, but that should be interesting. But today we're going to take a look at the full Ryzen 5 lineup here. 6-core and above is what I usually recommend, but let's run down the specs of all the Ryzen 5 lineup. The Ryzen 1400 and 1500X both feature 384 kilobits of L1 cache, while the 1600 and the 1600X both feature 576 kilobits. L2 cache is 2 megabytes on the 1400 and the 1500X, while the other two 1600 and 1600X are at 3 megabits for the L2 cache. 8 megabytes is present on the 1400. The rest of the three models here have 16 gigabytes of L3 cache. That's something a little bit different. You'll see in the benchmarks that why the 1400 actually just started to lag behind. The included coolers that are included with these, other than the 1600X, is the Wraith Stealth with the 1400, the Wraith Spire in both the 1500X and the 1600. 1600X does not include one. They're assuming you're going to be more overclocking at that point, so you're going to need to provide your own thermal solution. Number of cores is 4 cores across the 1400 and the 1500X, while 6 cores is present on the 1600 and 1600X, while effectively having 8 threads on the 1400, 8 threads on the 1500X, 12 threads on the 1600 and the 1600X. As far as frequencies goes, the 1400 is at 3.2 gigahertz, the 1500X is at 3.5, and then the 1600 is at 3.2 gigahertz and 3.6 gigahertz for the 1600X. All of these processors feature XFR or extended frequency range. Quite honestly, the best chip to get as far as XFR was concerned, again, is the 1600X. It surprised me. It actually got up to 4.1 gigahertz and stayed there for the majority of the time. I didn't even have to touch anything. Given that my thermal solution was an Exigmatech Skyla 240 AIO, it was cooling it quite well. You'll see in the benchmarks or in the temperatures that they really didn't get out of control at all. So more of a controlled environment I was trying to shoot for. I know the thermal design is only a 65 watt pretty much across the board. However, I just wanted to basically make sure that they were all the same going across the board, so I got consistent results. DDR4 is the standard, as with all the rest of the Ryzen 5 and 7 and will be 3 lineup as well as far as the memory concerned. Key features of each processor would be AES support across the entire board, AVX across the board as well too, as well as XFR. AMD's Sense MI technology is also present, as well as FMA, and AMD's virtualization is built into every single Ryzen 5 CPU. So that about rounds it out for the specifications of the Ryzen 5 CPUs. Let's break to some benchmarks slash thermals on that, and then we're going to cut to a conclusion. Alright, there you have it. Ryzen 5 CPUs 1400, 1500X, 1600, and 1600X, as well as the 1700 is in those benchmarks. Tell me what you guys think of this, what you guys would probably build in. Personally, basically, I would probably market the 1700 obviously to a content creator slash gamer. Same thing goes with the 1600 and 1600X. those chips just kind of make sense for me to recommend that to someone that's going to want to create videos, a streamer, maybe a streamer on a budget for the 1600, envelope pusher for the 1600X, maybe even the 1700 is where I'd recommend. The 1500X is a good all-around budget chip, but my main problem with the 1500X is that every other chip that I had, including the 1700 all the way down to the 1400, other than the 1500X, nailed the memory at 3200 megahertz, which I'm using the Guile RGB 3200 megahertz kit. That, for some weird reason, I had to run it at 2667. So then it was rock solid stable, which it then overclocked itself using XFR to 4 gigahertz. So, but all right, conclusion time. So let's start from the bottom and go all the way up. The 1400, decent CPU. I would probably market it towards the regular gamer. Small form factor builds need apply. I think the thermals were well in check if you throw an AIO on there. Even with the Race Stealth cooler, I think that you can build it in a small form factor case if you weren't into overclocking. I know I tested it with an X370 motherboard, but not really needed. You can do B350 no problem, and it would do XFR just fine. But small form factor is where I would position that. That would give a 3.5 flames out of 5. Decent chip. Moving up, you have the 1500. I would give that a 4 flames out of 5. That's again towards the gamer, or more of a budget gamer that wants to overclock a little bit. 4 gigahertz was the highest I got on my sample. But the weird thing is about the 1500X is I wasn't able to get 3200 megahertz on the memory, so I had to bump it down to 2667. So it's kind of a bummer at that, but after that it was rock solid. Moving up to the 1600, good performer if you're on a budget, but you still want a 6-core. It does overclock to 4 gigahertz as well, so I thought that was pretty good too. Great for the content creator / gamer, so maybe a content creator, streamer, gamer kind of thing that was just starting out and didn't want to actually throw a lot of money at it. That's where I would position that one. The 1600X was the best clocker of them all. It went up to 4.1 gigahertz, no problem. It boosted it, never really touched it. That's the XFR working for it. So realistically, manual overclocking with these chips are So I would give the 1600X 4.5 out of 5 flames. Really impressed me with the performance. Just an all-round good performer. When playing with it against my 1700, didn't really notice any performance degradation. Quite honestly, 3D Mark actually scored better. And that just basically proves it that frequency is still king at this point. Applications need to get more multi-threaded. The more we do it, the more it's actually going to be better. But as of right now, 4 and 6 cores tend to be ousting the 8-core counterparts. So again, frequency is king. Alright, that's going to do it for my reviews of the Ryzen 5 1400, 1500X, 1600, and 1600X. Great CPUs. I'm going to be putting these in a few extra little builds here and there. Great little CPUs. I can't really speak ill will of them. If you're looking for a budget but great CPU and kind of sick of the Intel kind of thing, check out Ryzen. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. If you haven't liked this video, go ahead and like it. Dislike it if you disliked it, and toss us a subscribe as we're trying to grow our subscriber base for overclock.net. That's going to give us a little bit more of an idea of who's actually watching these videos, what are we going to do in the future here, and things like that. So keep in mind that this is for the Hardware Labs review team. Coming up on the channel is going to be the EK Waterblocks A240G. So this is an interesting water cooling kit that actually includes a CPU block, a GPU block, pump, res, and a 240 millimeter radiator. With a twist though, it's made out of aluminum. So I'll save that for next time. See you guys in the next one.